Hi everybody, and welcome back to the technology stage here at RNS. Welcome from wherever you are, and while we're getting set up today, feel free to drop in the chat where you're coming from. I've been with you all morning. My name is Cristaldi, and I am the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Virtuous, coming in from beautiful and quite hot Phoenix, Arizona. I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina. As you can tell, big dress, big hair, very Southern. But it is nice to be here in the heat. And I am joined by my very dear friend. I so wish you were here with us. Nicholas, he is hailing from, don't let me get this wrong, it's Michigan, right?
Detroit, Michigan, you got it.
That's awesome. And Nick, it's so great to have you. Next year, we're definitely going to just have to have you come to Phoenix and abandon the cold weather and snow that is the mitten of our country. But as we get today's session going, we're going to be talking about the 5 marketing trends nonprofits need to know and embrace. And this is a topic that you and I are like super passionate about. I've been in the marketing world for, my goodness, well over 10 years now. How long have you been, operating in the marketing world?
It's been 12 years.
Excellent. Very nice.
Over a decade. Yeah.
And, while we're at it, why not go ahead and give everybody a quick description, of KindKatch and of Fleece and thank you.
For sure, yeah. Well, nice to see everybody. In 2015, was living and working in Australia, playing soccer for a living, dove into the nonprofit space and fell in love. Moved back to Michigan, started Fleece and Thank You. We get to comfort kids in the hospital, make around 30,000 blankets a year, each one with a personal video message from the person that made it to the patient that receives it. The recipient can then send a message back to the blanket maker. And through that journey, that one-to-one personalized video engagement turned into its own technology platform called KindKatch. And we're really lucky there to help a lot of nonprofits across the country build stronger communities and engage their audience with personalized video. And got amazing teams on both the Fleece and Thank You side and the KindKatch side, and it's I'm truly living my purpose. And being here today is pretty awesome. So Kelly, I'm pumped to chat with you here today.
Yeah, super pumped to have you here as well. We're not going to worry about me. Everybody, we know me by this point. I am just your chatty girl here on the tech stage this week. But to kick us off today is I wanted to start off with this really great quote, which is, marketing is no longer about the stuff you make. It's about the stories that you tell. And in the nonprofit world, nothing is more applicable than the stories that we tell. Way back when, marketing was about stuff, right? It was about making us purchasing, that consumerism, driving, the market. But for nonprofits especially, we're really trying to sell the heart of our mission. We're really trying to tie supporters into our stories and connecting so deeply. So I think this is just a really great quote to kind of set the stage for today's session. And we're going to walk you through, like we said, those 5 marketing trends you really need to know about to really empower your mission. And the first one up is email isn't everything. So let's kind of take the quote that we just had on the previous slide and how that marries up, with how email isn't everything. If you go into your inbox, whether it's Gmail, Yahoo, Hotmail, whatever provider that you choose, I can almost guarantee that a good portion of our audience gets daily emails from different companies trying to promote something. Whether it's, some sale is going on, something new is about to come in that you really enjoy, perhaps a piece of photography equipment and a lens is coming available. There's always some kind of sales pitch. And email marketing really is here to stay. But when you've got all of these endless shopping emails, when you've got emails coming in from your team, when you've got things, say, coming in from your school that your children go to, how do you break through the noise? How do you break through this kind of static electricity that's constantly evolving around us, trying to push us to take action, when really we want to break through that noise and have our donors see clearly and make sure that they're responding to the needs that can really have a greater impact in their community? And the thing is, too, with email, I do want to point out as well that I am one of the people that probably don't really like emails anymore. And Nick, I don't know about you, but it does, for me, just feels like my inbox, it opens up and it feels like just an inundation of information. And the younger generation, like our Gen Zers, and probably those that are going to come after the Gen Z generation feels the same way. It's just, we're not tethered to our emails anymore. It's too much. And there are other ways to really communicate. But then again, like, how do you break through that noise? What do you think, Nick?
Well, I think if anyone listening to this thinks about like your closest friends, and think about the ways that your closest friends communicate with you. It is not always the same medium. Your closest friends do not always just send you emails or always just call you. Omni-channel communication is the trend that we really need to make sure that we're focusing on here. It is making sure it's the right blend of emails, calls, texts, and we'll go through some of these other ones throughout this conversation, but that's the way I see it. If you think about the way your closest friends communicate with you, it's different touch points, different mediums, and when you look at your communication strategy, it should be reflective of the same.
Absolutely. That personalized and segmented messaging is like really what we've been honing in, especially today here on the tech stage. And it's even more so now as we look towards marketing trends. Like one of the ways that we're going to be able to break through the noise and really be able to even reach out to our younger donors is by making sure that it's super personalized and it's segmented, that messaging. We don't want to just like blanket send out some kind of information. I love the analogy you just used of like, how do you communicate with your friends? The same kind of principle should follow with the type of email communication that you're sending out. That's one really great way to break through that noise. But in another hand, why not look at other ways that we can cultivate donors outside of their inbox? Back to the multi-channel, kind of like omni-channel experience that Nick just brought up. Why not take that messaging that you're going to send and say a newsletter, letting people know that there's an urgent need in your community, that you're really trying to fundraise for, say, for example, I don't know, we need to provide emergency supplies after a disaster relief kind of campaign. Say a tornado came through a community and we needed to get like bottled water, we need to get clothing, we need to get supplies out to those in need. We can actually send that through email, but why not take that same messaging and apply it to your social media? Why not apply it to social media ads? If you are the type of organization that has media partnership ties, you can also go to them to see if there's a news article that they can write up. There's a piece that they could come out on scene to, really drive home the impact that would be created if someone were to donate. So email is great. It's never going away. It will always be there, but it isn't everything. And Nick, you had this really great case study from Fleece and Thank You, and I'd love for you to share that story with our audience.
For sure, yeah. For everyone watching, I'm hoping that I can be hyper practical for you and with you today. I live in the shoes that you live every day as the executive director of a nonprofit here in Michigan. So any and all of the advice that I provide, take it with a grain of salt. I'm one opinion out of 8 billion. But I'm going to share with you things that I've actually done, worked, tried, failed at. Omni-channel, like I mentioned, super key. And we had, if I take you back to one of our last Giving Tuesday campaigns and fundraisers, we had a $7,500 goal. And the way that we set up our omni-channel ahead of time looked something like this. So we actually did take the time to slightly tweak email copy based on those 5 different segments within our audience: volunteers, board, first-time donors, repeat donors, and non-donors, people we just had contact information for. Each one of those 5 got a different series throughout the week leading up to this Giving Tuesday campaign. We paired that also with scheduled social media posts before and during the day of. Again, messaging and overall messaging consistent, but the personalization components differed each time. And then we actually sent some direct text messages out to some of our like super hot groups, recent volunteers, people who had just recently given time, come to an event, just recently given a gift. Obviously, you're bored. So we looked at emails, social, text, and made this really great omni-channel approach. And the last thing that I think was important about the day is dare to be different. For this particular Giving Tuesday fundraiser, we wanted to fund a hospital-grade washing machine to wash all the blankets that we provide for kids. So I sat on the concrete all day, sending out communications, videos, texts to these groups. And I told everyone, I went on Facebook Live and I said, I'm not going to get up from this spot until we hit this fundraising goal. And through the army of different emails, messages, texts, videos, at about 2:45 that day, I was able to stand up. We had hit our fundraising goal. So I think having that head turner of, holy smokes, that's something different, is also a really key component paired with the omni-channel messaging, and you can achieve some really cool success.
Wow, I love that. I actually did not know that piece of the story where you literally were sitting on the pavement until the fundraising goal was met. Like, talk about such a great way to drive home and the dedication behind that fundraising goal. Also, great use of omni-channel. I loved a lot of the things that y'all were using there, going well beyond email, talking about social, talking about SMS. I feel like SMS is oftentimes forgotten. We're actually going to get into that a little bit later. But this is just such a really great, unique case study. So thank you for sharing that experience. For these key takeaways for email marketing, like we've been talking about, consider expand your email marketing to other channels, that omni-channel approach that, Nick just shared in that case study where we can go well beyond email marketing. How do we take that same messaging and apply that to social media, to ads, to SMS? How do we have a really true omni-channel approach? And then make sure your messages are segmented properly. We talk about this a lot here at Virtuous. We talked about a lot yesterday during our donor journey series, things like that, is we don't want to just dump everybody into the same bucket and having them get the same messaging. Make sure that they're segmented properly so it still feels really deep and personal. And then include personalization, back to that kind of, I want to have a conversation with a friend, I want to feel connected to them. Make sure you're using personalization so you're speaking one-to-one instead of that one-to-many. So like I was just saying, and this is such a good tee up, is text me maybe, and if you're a Carly Rae Jepsen fan, or you just remember the really hit song from like maybe 20 years ago, I'm not that old, I promise, but text me maybe. So Nick, kind of talk to us a little bit about how SMS can actually really empower nonprofits in their marketing strategies going forward.
Yeah, when I first journeyed into the SMS side of things, I was very scared and uncertain. And I think the couple of the things that I've learned and that are very important to talk about when it comes to texting is that it is, first and foremost, hugely important when you introduce text along that donor or non-donor journey. You have to introduce text messaging at points of trust and points of transaction. An amazing spot to do that is in a welcome series. Right? If there's a recent activity that someone's taken with your organization, a donation, event attendance, volunteer hour, they've opened a window that is a closing window, but for you to fire them a text message, for that number to get saved right in their contacts, and for that relationship through that channel to be established. Also, the context of text is key. We cannot look at email and text as two different mediums to drive the same messaging. They're very much different. And when you start on your journey with texting, the first three messages probably have to be give value, give value, give value, and earn the right to, by the fourth message, hopefully make an ask. One of the biggest mistakes that I see from partner nonprofits is they jump onto a texting platform and the first message they send out is on a fundraising campaign. And it, again, one person's opinion, just not the way to introduce texting. So I think when you introduce it at points of trust and transaction is key. The context of it, give value, give value, give value before that you earn the right to ask. And then the third piece that's important with text is, because text and email are different, set the right expectation for what an unsubscribe rate is going to be. You are going to be very caught off guard at first by the amount of unsubscribes you get from texting. But just know that the average email opt-out rate is around 2%, but the average text messaging campaign opt-out rate is around 20%. And most of that 20% happens within the first 30 days or sometimes within the first 30 minutes of sending a text. And that can be kind of soul-crushing when you send out your first campaign. But just know that's going to happen. There's a certain group of people that don't want to be communicated with that way, and that's A-OK. The ones that stay will probably stay for a really long time receiving your texts. So those would be kind of the three quick things, Kelly, that I think are really important to talk about when it comes to texting.
I couldn't agree more, Nick. And then to that point about texting and being alarmed by those unsubscribe rates, by making sure that we're really intentional with SMS. we had a conversation yesterday about SMS in our donor journey session, and keep in mind too that some of your supporters may not want to be in contact with you via SMS, and that is something to keep in mind as well. And that goes back to properly segmenting your donors, making sure that, let's say for someone, we have Betty who is 65 and actually really prefers getting a postcard, a letter, or an email over SMS. Those are other criteria to take into context when you're starting down this path of SMS. So just as we applied the rule of one-to-one instead of one-to-many for email, SMS can really fall into that as well. Some key takeaways here too. I think we've covered quite a few of these just from the information you shared with us, Nick, is making sure your SMS campaigns are personalized and segmented. Of course, like there are donors like myself where I would love to have a text message. 90% of us have our phones on us at all times. Actually, I'll give you an example. My phone is sitting right over here on a table. I am the 90%. But most text messages are opened and reviewed within 3 minutes of receiving them. So make sure that while that's the case, you're sending it to folks that actually are going to receive that well, and making sure that you're building the trust in your text. Nick had a really great point that the first kind of mistake that we make with SMS is thinking, well, I can just use it for our financial ask. No, we need to make sure that we're building that trust into the system before we take the plunge into a financial ask. How would you feel if you got a random email out of nowhere or even a text and it prompts you to spend $25 for a donation? I think we would all feel a little offended. Make sure too to write really short and compelling messages under 160 characters. That's a really short amount of space, so make sure that you really review that copy with your marketing team, with your fundraising team, making sure you're really driving value home in that text message because you're with a really short window. And then be cognizant of timing. Space out your messages to donors to introduce a text to the right time. So again, building that trust, but also not bombarding them with a text every day. I have actually received text messages from nonprofits that I ultimately had to unsubscribe and opt out of because they were very persistent and they actually never built trust with me first, and they were asking a lot of me. So be really cognizant of that. And of course, one of my favorite things that kind of ties back to our quote at the beginning of today's session is storytelling. So Nick, y'all at KindKatch do actually at Fleece, and thank you too, more importantly, y'all do a great job with storytelling. Kind of walk us through storytelling and how you've been able to leverage that, especially at Fleece, and thank you.
Yeah, well, storytelling is this great buzzword that we hear often. For me, the trend here to talk about in video storytelling is that authentic video is winning today. I mean, it's indisputable that video as a medium is getting consumed at a crazy fast, high rate compared to the written word or audio. But authentic video is the trend here that's really important to say. And I think authentic video is winning because nothing connects humans to humans like being vulnerable. When I say authentic video, it means on a Monday morning, pulling your phone out and filming a thank you message directly to one or to a group of people that gave you a general gift last week. That type of video is what is really winning. I think that as the last 3 to 4 years have shown us, is that people love what they love and they don't love what they don't love, and they're starting to gravitate towards these micro ecosystems. And if you can connect with someone through authentic video, you're probably going to make them really, really sticky. So it's such a powerful tool, Kelly, to be used, with the right message at the right time.
Absolutely. And, about pulling out your phone, nothing gives me greater joy than seeing that really raw, authentic footage. I think there's a really big misconception around video. And I mean, we're kind of ones to talk today because we have this great AV crew here, for RNS, but you don't need this really big production value. You don't need the lights, and the cameras and the boom mics and all these things. If you just want to create really authentic storytelling through video, it is as simple as pulling out your phone and recording it. Our phones today have amazing camera capabilities, amazing technology behind it. It's insane to think what we've come from in just a mere probably 5 years even with our phones. Simply pulling that out and just having a genuine conversation that way is immaculate. And not to mention, there's a lot of wins for video too.
We buy and sell in the nonprofit space on a feeling. Like, and you led off with this at the beginning, Kelly, that, what are we trading on? We don't sell products necessarily, but in the nonprofit space, the feeling is what is key. And video is this amazingly effective medium to communicate feeling in a way that written word cannot. I think that there are 5 really easy places to start to introduce video in any of your donor journeys or just overall communications. The first one is probably the most obvious one. A thank you video is, almost always going to be received with open arms and really well, super connecting. Second to that, I think that video has a really interesting place around some of your key events. At KindKatch, we often tell some of our partners, like, the know before you go video before an event is so powerful. It's a video that shows someone who's attending where their parking registration is, where they walk in, what faces they're looking for, alleviating anxiety to someone coming to the event. So there's a lot of things around events that you can use video with. Third is board updates. We all know how important our board can be and how frustrating it is when our board does not seem engaged or is not acting on some of the things we want them to act on. And video is a really easy tool, pre-post board meeting, quick tee up the board meeting with the video, post-board meeting recap type of video. Those are really awesome. Number 4 to me is like the hidden gem that I don't think we talk enough about, but is really, really special. If you send someone a video the 13th month after their last gift, so they've lapsed at month 12, you didn't hit them on their anniversary, sending a video to lapsed donors at month 13 is incredibly powerful, and you will be amazed at how many dollars you win back and how much support you win back by making an authentic connection at that point. And then the last one, 5, this concept of closed loop fundraising. It's one thing to have your overall mission and have campaign ABCDE and create donations through ABCDE and then share the overall impact to everyone. It's a second level of this concept of closed loop fundraising and using video to say, you gave to campaign A, here's a video of the impact campaign A have, or you gave to campaign C, here's a video of what we did with your dollars. And I think that is, a place that we all should be striving to get to.
Absolutely. And, there's some key takeaways here. Before I move really into those key takeaways, is I do want to address one question that I see on the screen is, if we can go back to our chat really quick. Thank you, sir. How do you send those video messages? Only through text? Is there a better way? Amazing question. No, you don't have to just do it through text. You can send it through email. You can do it through social media. One thing that we used to do when I worked at our animal welfare shelter was just simply taking out my phone and I would go on Facebook Live. And I would be like, say, on the scene for our annual gala, and I would just be like, here we are at our gala. We're so excited to welcome everybody tonight. Here are some of the setup process going on, just like taking people behind the scenes. Amazing. Going live and showing the food drive that we had going on. I'll never forget that we were in a crisis mode because we had a pantry for families in need to feed their animals, and we literally had mere bags left in our pantry. I went on Facebook Live, and I kid you not, in 24 hours we had something like 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of food donated. Like, it's simple things like that. Text is obviously great, but there's maybe some technological considerations to give there. If text doesn't really support that type of functionality, but it can be through email, it can be through social media, it really can be through any channel. It goes back to that multi-channel approach as well. But we've kind of talked about these as well as be really vulnerable and authentic in your videos. Nick, you made a really great point, is that we really can articulate things much better in video than through email. We start to second guess ourselves. We start to just be like, ooh, does that sound right? Is the grammar right? We start to feel a little weird about it, but in video, it comes across so easily. And I actually like to envision that I'm just speaking to a friend instead of a camera when I'm making those videos. Again, high production value does not equate high engagement levels. Really, the things that perform the best with our supporters are those that are really raw. Like, I'm talking pulling out your phone, putting on front or back mode, and just going with the flow. If you'd like to add some filters, you may do so, but you certainly do not need anything super high quality to get that messaging out. And then, like I just spoke to, consider live on social media. I think that's something that has waned over time. I know when I was in the nonprofit world, that was like a really big thing for us to do. I don't really see it as often, but that does not mean it's not applicable to your organization. Your donors, whether we may not know it, are actually really engaged with those live videos. So that's something to maybe play around and test out. Awesome. So here's a fun one, and we actually just covered this one a little bit in our automation session just mere moments before this one started, is the robots, y'all, they are not coming, and I promise you that. It may seem like it when we hear words like automation and AI and things like that, and it sounds a little like, 2030 or like, ooh, somehow we've gone like 100 years in the future, but I assure you the robots are not coming. If anything, automation can really help you scale your donor communications. Like Rachel and I were just talking about in our previous session, automation is like what I kind of equate to your executive assistant. It is something that, a human touch needs to build out, but it's this really helpful tool that can help prompt and send things out on your behalf that's still deeply personalized to your supporters. It's a really great way to also scale things with your donors as well by enacting different types of journeys. Maybe it's celebrating milestones like we talked about, if they hit certain giving levels, various volunteer hour milestones, or even simply saying happy birthday or happy anniversary with our organization. One way to also do this is by incorporating donor data for a really rich personalized experience. So you can actually do that by using different tags, different smart tags inside of those communications with your donors in Virtuous. So it is hyper personalized and it's not manual, which is great. There is nothing worse than having to scroll through and trying to find information. If, for example, you're trying to set up we'll take it quite simply, a happy birthday type email automation campaign with your donors, you can simply add in smart tags that pull in that information from their contact record. So you're not actually going through each email and putting it in manually. And then, Nick, I know that we're really going to be digging into this one in just a quick second, so I'm going to tee it up for you, is creating a donor journey that dynamically responds to behavior. But I think this is where this is a really great chance for us to kind of look and see how Fleece and Thank You has really incorporated automation into y'all's journeys.
Yeah, awesome. I think the trend that we're going to talk about right here is donor journeys. I think donor journeys are in, and more importantly, they're within reach. And often, like when I was first learning about donor journeys, I asked the question that's not a silly question to ask at all. Like, what does it mean, a donor journey? Like, I've heard people say this, but what does it mean? And so if you go to the next slide here, Kelly, I'm going to bring you all into the playbook of Fleece and Thank You and how we incorporate donor journeys. Now, I don't expect you to see all the words on the screen. There's a lot here, but if you click next here, Kelly, I just want to zero in on two key pieces. The first one that we're going to talk about, and you can hit next again for me, Kelly, if you don't mind, is there is a specific part in our donor journeys, and go ahead one more time, Kelly, our new donor welcome series. And so we've got communications mapped out for every different place someone can come into Fleece and Thank You. One in particular is a new donor. So this is first time donor experience. You go to the next slide here, Kelly. This is just going to dive in deeper to that new donor welcome series. And again, if you can't read the words on the screen because they're too small for whatever reason, just the heart of what you're seeing here is that we have mapped out the exact cadence, messaging, and medium of what we want someone to experience from the day that they give their first time donation to us until the 6-month mark after that, where we ask them to make another gift. And so that cadence includes a simple email thank you right away. Within 7 days, an automation that we use picks them up, and I pull a report that I send to 7 board members that help me make thank you calls within that first week. 7 days after that, they're getting a personal video message texted from me with their first time donor welcome and impact video. And then there's a series of emails and other text leading up to month 6, where we then ask them for that second gift. So if you go to the next slide here, Kelly, and then hit next, I think 1 or 2 more times, our magnifying glass will pop up. The next place, and I talked about a little bit earlier, is that donor retention win-back series. So again, I'm just trying to show you high level. We've got all these different pieces to our donor journey, but now we dive in. Again, this place in particular is key. Leading up to a donor anniversary, so usually anywhere from month 9 to month 12, we're leaking in some communication to that donor, letting them know their anniversary date is coming up. People love to know that their anniversary date is coming up, and if you don't tell them, they probably are not going to know. So leading up, we call that pre-lapsing donor, and leading up to that anniversary date, we're hitting them with some messaging, video, and email messaging. On the day of their anniversary, they're getting a massive congratulations message. We're celebrating their anniversary. And yes, we're asking them to make another gift on their anniversary. If they don't make it on the day, then 1 month later, there's some more communications using video and some other mediums that are trying to win them back. Prior to setting up this donor journey, some of my donors were making another gift, some weren't. They didn't know it was their anniversary date. They didn't know when they had lapsed. And, people they kind of forget. They go about life, right? But just through a set of automated nudges, pre-lapse, anniversary date, and post, we're now able to win back gifts at a crazy awesome rate and keep donors engaged. And they're thanking us, like, thank you so much for reminding me about my anniversary date. And that's when you've got a solid group of donors.
That's so true. And I've seen a couple questions come through about this particular example from both journeys. It can be a little difficult to see. The recording and the slides will be made available after the summit, but I do want to say this is an excellent playbook, step by step on what you have to do. And what I love too, Nick, is y'all's team literally just created this in Canva. Like, you can just go on a whiteboard and mock it up, pull up a piece of paper and start mocking it out of what these steps look like. It does not have to be anything very professional or even polished. I actually really like getting those giant, like sticky notes so you can put on the wall. Yeah. And just mapping out things with my team. That is a really great way to not only visualize and kind of walk through steps, but actually kind of conceptualize how many steps it's going to be. I think this is a perfect amount of steps to re-engage with folks. We shared a really interesting statistic yesterday that with our lapsed donors, 60% don't even realize that they have lapsed. So imagine if you were to put them through a lapsed donor workflow like this. Imagine how many would re-engage simply because you've reminded them, hey, did you know that you haven't donated to our cause in quite some time? Because 60% of folks have completely forgotten that. So this is just an absolutely amazing strategy. I love it. Folks, like, if you're looking to pursue this type of path, this is like 5 gold star, 10 out of 10 example of what you can do at your own organization. So I just really thank you for being vulnerable and showing us this example that others can also use to scale their own operations.
For sure. And you talked, Kelly, about like the how to do this. And if you throw up that next slide, like, to your point, it started with a team meeting with that big giant sticky note and a whiteboard, right?
Yes.
And when I share the donor journey Canva piece with folks, often some of the feedback is, looks great, Nick, but no way we have the bandwidth to do that. And so I believe everyone does. And I think the 5 easiest first steps to getting started, if you liked what you just saw, the first one is pull out a list, again, on that big sticky note whiteboard, and just list every place or moment that you have an interaction with a contact, donor or non-donor, volunteer, etc. Think about where people can subscribe for your emails, where they can register for your events, where they can sign up to volunteer, where they can give a gift. Just list out all the places that you have an interaction with someone as step 1. Step 2, one at a time, take a point of interaction, and then think about what is the communication, cadence, medium, and messaging that we'd like them to experience. If we go to that lapsed donor one, right, we said that 12 months after a gift, their gift is lapsed. And so we then said, okay, well, before their gift lapsed, we should tell them that their anniversary is coming up. Then we should tell them on the anniversary. And if they don't give again, we should remind them that they gave over a year ago. And so then you move to number 3. After you've made this one journey for one transaction point, you make your second, you make your third, and then you step back and you look at this map and you really figure out, okay, where do these overlap? What do we need to take out? Where did we actually make the same journey? And then you can really strategically look and say, cool, now we understand Kelly came to us as a volunteer. She got a non-donor welcome series. She got thanked for her volunteer hours. And at month 6, we asked her to make her first gift, 6 months after her gift of time and receiving some messaging about the work that we're doing and how she's a part of it. And so that's number 4. Like, after you've looked at that series and all those communications, then it's time to strategically just drop in where you want to make that ask, and then just launch one of those at a time. Everything we said, 1 through 4, was planning stages. And what you saw in that Canva document was a lot of planning and thought power and sleepless nights, and I was dreaming about donor journeys. But we spent so much time then on the lift. Then once we launched the first non-donor welcome series first. Then we launched our first time donor welcome series. And we've now launched, more and more series, and you saw, just a portion of the web that we've got. But it is so achievable because you're talking with someone that has 2 full-time staff members and 6 part-time staff members up here in sunny and exotic Detroit, Michigan. And I know if we can do it, you can do it. I promise.
We can absolutely do it. And you know what I like about this strategy too is it really leans into, which I believe we're going to discuss here momentarily, is our crawl, walk, run methodology, is start with one at a time. If you recall those slides, they really are just a handful of touches. We start out with 3 to 4. Really don't need to create these really crazy complex 20-step workflows for our donor journeys. Simply start small, because those are often going to be your most impactful because they're really intentional. You've taken the time to really think them through to make sure that you are going to have a really great experience for your supporters. If we do something that's like that 15 to 20 step, I'll be honest, I think a lot of people would, opt out of those messages because it's simply too much. So really keeping it simple, like the examples that Nick showed us, is just excellent. A couple of key takeaways. Look, there we go. Qual work run with your workflows, y'all. Start simple before building your way to much more complex workflows. Speed's also your touch point with donors. We've kind of talked about this throughout today's session too, is making sure we're not just overwhelming people. It can span days, weeks, even months for these workflows. So that's something to take into consideration as well. I think there is a little bit of this fear or this pressure we put on ourselves internally with workflows that, my goodness, they must get executed and my donors must hear from me from all these touch points in 5 days. Please don't do that. Please actually, really think again, really intentionally, really thoughtfully. If I send this one touch point today, maybe in 3 to 4 days or even 7 business days. And that's also something to consider too if you're going to be sending contacts out on a business day schedule or a normal schedule as well. How many days do I want to pass before that next touch goes out? That's also really important to consider. And then, we talked a lot about this in our previous session, and I think it's really applicable here now, is we use automations a lot for donor journeys, but we can also use it to keep our donor data clean. If you're going through these donor journeys, especially if it's for a first-time welcome donor journey where they've given that first gift, they get that thank you email, and then along the way in that series, they made another gift, using tags to then relabel them as a second-time giver can move them out of that bucket for first-time givers and put them in another bucket for those that have given repeatedly. And the messaging will be different there as well. Maybe we're actually trying to position things as becoming a recurring donor. Maybe we can do things like, you've donated twice, maybe now the next step is to become more involved with your time by being a volunteer. Something that we talk about a lot as well is not every ask needs to be financial. It can be something like donation of their time, supplies, resources, things like that. Just another thing to kind of keep in mind. But the last thing to kind of keep in mind too for marketing trends is be a laboratory. So my marketing team here at Virtuous, I say this all the time, and I'm going to direct this at my lovely colleague who's sitting near me. We are a laboratory, are we not? And we actually foster a culture of being okay to fail. And why is that? Because marketing is a lab. It's supposed to be crazy and fun and trying new things, trying these new crazy things that come out, experimenting with things that are the old, tried and true, because it's so fun. And part of that too is just being data driven. As we experiment and do new things and try different techniques and strategies and methods, make sure that we're data driven in all of that, because that's how we really show growth. And you can do that by managing your data that's really reliable, clean, and secure. Once we have a lot of these things down, like say for that donor journey, we're seeing really great open rates, we're seeing really high click rates, and then suddenly things plummet. Like we're showing 10% open rates, we're showing barely anybody engaging with them after that first donor touch. Hey, guess what? We're not going to see that as a failure. We're going to see it as a way to test, and we're going to go back and retool that message. Maybe we're sending it too frequently. Maybe we're not sending it fast enough to our supporters, or maybe that messaging is no longer resonating with them and really driving the value home of why it was so important to donate to our cause. So keep testing. And lastly, don't be afraid to fail. I fail all the time, and it's totally fine. Nick, I'm sure y'all have done stuff where it completely blew up, and that is a-okay.
Yeah, I've got a great oh shoot story coming up for you on data. The thing that we as a best practice for us is every large email campaign that we're sending, we always A/B test, always. And why not?
Great.
It's going to take you maybe 10 extra minutes to make a new subject line and tweak a little bit of copy. Let the numbers speak for themselves. Data is great because numbers are unbiased. They tell a story. They never lie. And so when we always A/B test, we're always making sure that the first 10 to 20% of our audience, sees both in the A/B, and the 80% gets the best performing one. The trend here that is so worth talking about is that data is like a hammer. You can use it for good or for evil in the right place and the wrong place, and you wouldn't use a hammer to eat soup. There is a right and wrong place to be using data and when you message it. And, for us, when I launched my donor journeys, you look at that Canva map and you think, oh, it must have been great. Everything went smooth. I did not take into account that key event sponsors that I was importing in event offline donations with would then get caught up in my new donor welcome series. And it's like, well, hold on a second. You're a donor. You've sponsored events before, and now you're getting this new donor welcome series because my data coming into our current Virtuous CRM wasn't clean enough. And that was a problem, right? And so I had, my fair share of the oh shoot moments because my data that I was tracking along the way, wasn't clean at the time. Started to clean that data up, started to think deeper about, like when we talk about journeys, which segment of a segment actually needs to be getting, this type of messaging. So data is this crazy awesome tool to be used for good or for bad, for right or for wrong, in personalization in certain times and not in others, because I think today's sophisticated donor, the new age donor, requires this level of storytelling and data on your impact and what you know about them. And if you can find that balance of this triangle of data on your impact, key stories of the impact you're making, and showcasing what you know about Kelly as a donor, then if you can hit that balance right, you can see some really awesome things in response from your audience.
That's exactly it. And to wrap this part of our conversation up, because I do want to leave time for questions at the end, just a few key takeaways here is understand what you want to measure as well for these goals. Is it your engagement? Is your brand recognition or your messaging? It doesn't have to be clicks or opens. So really take a look and see at other ways that you want to measure how things are succeeding or perhaps not exactly meeting standards. And establish a benchmark so you can evaluate over time, yearly, monthly, weekly, and how to make those changes. And then lastly, assess your current capabilities and identify your weak and strong points. All of these are really great key takeaways and how to kind of marry that up with making sure that your data is kept really clean, but making sure that your donor journeys are super impactful. And then I'd love to just take a moment here to answer some questions. I know that we've had a couple come through in today's chat, or if we have like a few seconds left to answer some other questions if folks are thinking about them. But any last tidbits, tips, tricks, Nick, that you'd like to share with folks?
I think if we run through the trends we talked about today, the trends worth noting, it's like omni-channel wins, right? Earn the right to text and text at the right time. Video is winning attention. Donor journeys are in and within reach. And data is a hammer, and today's donor just requires that we use data at the right time in the right place.
That's wonderful. Nick, it is such a pleasure to share the stage, albeit virtually, with you. It is always a pleasure of mine to be able to spend time with you. If you are ever curious to learn more both about KindKatch and about Fleece and Thank You, Nick's information is here. You can simply email or call or visit their website. Again, like those donor journey examples that you shared were truly, truly amazing. So thank you again for just being really open and honest and vulnerable with our audience today and sharing that. I think it's going to be a really great tool for those that are looking to pursue this for the very first time, or even see how they can make adjustments to the journeys that they already use at their own organizations. But this is it for day 2 on the technology stage. Here in just a few minutes, we are going to wrap up today's session with a quick wrap up with a few of our speakers. Thank you all so very much for joining us here today. And lastly, if you are interested in pursuing our marketing automation playbook, you can simply scan this QR code here, or you can check out the link in the chat and it'll take you directly to it, and it'll be a great, helpful resource in tandem with this session. But thank you all so much.